Well, welcome back to Season 2, Episode 6 of the Powered Up Coaches Show, brought to you by Sideline Power, your one-stop shop for all of your coaching technology needs. This is an absolute intriguing interview with head coach Kurt Frenzen of Columbus Lakeview. So much good in this. Let's start with growing up on a farm in Fullerton, Nebraska, the youngest of 5 boys, and how his very patient mother and father allowed he and his siblings to turn the living room into their football playground. You're going to love that story. Also, how he has built his program in Columbus Lakeview to not just incorporate his players and his staff, but how he has invited the community in and how that has made his program better. And lastly, he'll tell you about an open and honest conversation that his athletic director had with him after his 3rd year of coaching that helped propel him to become a better coach and help propel them into a great season that year. You're going to love it. Kurt Frenzen, he is a gent, and you'll love this episode of the Powered Up Coaches Show. Well, listen, this is so much fun because I finally get to talk to the farm boy from Fullerton. Listen, you were the youngest of 5 boys. How tough did you have to be in that household?
Well, I'll tell you what, they didn't take it easy on me by any means. So, looking back, I had a great childhood, and it was pretty awesome growing up where we did. And, I refer to it as God's country for sure. It's a pretty amazing place to be, and Fullerton's an awesome town. And we actually just went back yesterday to visit my mom a little bit, my wife and I. And I was telling my wife we took a lap around town, and when you're growing up, that's your whole universe, that's your whole world, and that seemed like the biggest place that it could ever be, and just a lot of great people in that community, a lot of people that really cared about each other. And when you talk about Fullerton, it seemed like it didn't matter where you were hanging out or whatever, somebody was always looking out for you. And so that was a pretty awesome place to grow up. But, yeah, my brothers were always pretty tough on us and pretty mean to say the least. But they did it obviously out of love and a lot of respects as well,
too.
At
the time you're wondering if it's out of love,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely. But being the youngest, you're always kind of the one that is the first one to talk and speak out of turn a little bit. So they had to knock me back into place a little bit. But that paid dividends down the road. I think, tough lessons to learn, but definitely my oldest brother, Craig, and Kent and Scott and Rick were always guys that were definitely going to make sure that I stayed in line and didn't get out of line too much. And looking on back on that, definitely appreciate it.
Boy, your mom had to be a saint, 5 boys. I mean to tell you, there was some serious roughhousing going on, wasn't there?
Yeah, there's a special place in heaven for moms that have all boys, and to have 5 boys, definitely. She didn't have anything that was too nice in the living room, which honestly, when it was not nice enough outside, that was our football field still. So, things got broken over the years that, she weren't priceless artifacts, but definitely something that, was probably special to her. So she learned not to, put those things in harm's way. And our living room definitely served as a wrestling mat, a boxing ring, a football field, basketball court, and all those things were never off limits. And, the couch was, for me, a line and diving across into the end zone when I was watching football on TV. So her couch took a beating as well. And, I remember full padded games in there. I remember
in the living room, right?
In the living room.
I love it.
So on Monday Night Football, I remember way back when they would dress me up in full pads, helmet, shoulder pads, and pants. And one of the games they'd play is they'd be on each side of the living room and have me run. And one of the end zones, believe it or not, was our fireplace. But I'd run towards the fireplace from the landing, which was the other end zone, and they would try to trip me up with pillows and whatever else. And I had to hold the ball high and tight, and I couldn't fumble it and try not to get knocked down. But, there was a lot of things going on in that living room. So, yeah.
Oh, man alive. Your parents, both of them.
Yeah.
And Dad must have stayed out of it as well,
Well,
too.
Dad was always, around. And if it got too out of hand, then, he only had to raise his voice. And usually we'd get back in the line. And the thing about our family, we love sports and loved everything about it, and especially football. And Mom would turn a blind eye probably to a lot of those things because she had appreciation for for football. But yeah, my mom, Judy, and my dad, Marlon, were people that sports was at the forefront of their thoughts and everything they did. And that trickled down to the rest of our boys for sure.
Yeah, I love hearing those stories. Did you like farm life?
You know, for me, farming was never a huge passion.
Yeah.
My passion was honestly always football and sports. Now my 4 older brothers, farming was definitely more of a passion. My oldest brother, Craig, is the one that has stayed back and done the bulk of the farming. My 3 other brothers are involved in ag still and some of the farming as well, but their main occupation is crop adjusting, and so they've worked their way up the ladder and done a great job for themselves, make a pretty darn good living in crop adjusting. So all 4 of my brothers involved in ag in one way, shape, or form. For me, however, at a young age, I was obsessed with football and everything that went with football. You know, I think back to my childhood, anything that was on TV as far as a game, NFL Today, you know, it didn't matter, anything football related, I was just hooked to the TV. You know, I couldn't wait for Tuesday nights with the Big Red wrap up with John Melton and on our education channel, and I would just sit there and watch the weekly wrap up because not all the Nebraska games at that time were on TV. So when the game wasn't on TV, they'd show all the highlights from the game, and John Melton, the linebacker coach at Nebraska at that time, would talk about those. So that would always be one of the highlights for my week, is to, you know, tune into that and get caught up. So anything football related, that was always something. And so I knew at a young age that I wanted to be involved in football for the rest of my life. And
did you know coaching?
Well,
was that it, or was it just, hey, I love football?
Yeah, so there's a good story that goes how I got probably to the coaching point. So at a really young age, I think it was 4th grade or so, my mom was asking me just out of the blue, hey, what do you want to do when you get older? Well, I want to play football. You know, well, you better practice every day if you want to play football, and you need to be out there, no excuses. And if that's something you want to do, then you need to do your very best. Well, at that point in time, there were no, you know, private training sessions, and you didn't find a specialist. And even if we did, I don't think we could have afforded it at that point in time anyway. It was we were living on a farm in the 80s, and that wasn't a great occupation at the time, and interest rates were high, and prices weren't very good for everything. But regardless, you know, so I took her advice, and I went out and practiced a lot, and she watched me for a couple weeks run around the yard and, you know, do my drills, and she probably noticed my athleticism. She had a hard talk with me, and she goes, you know, if you really want to go to the next level and you want to make football a career, you may need to be a specialist. You need to try punting and kicking, because I don't think you're going to have the speed to play at the highest level of football. And so maybe punting, maybe kicking. So took her advice, and I punted and kicked for a couple weeks. And after punting and kicking for a couple weeks, she sat me down and she said, you know, I think coaching might be the route you need to go. So being a very honest and frank person definitely helped me out. But that is a true story. And from that point forward, I kind of started looking into coaching. And at that point in time, I think it was 1986, I still had a book in my office at school. It's just right to the right of my desk. You can pull out the drawer. But Tom Osborne's book, More Than Winning, my mom and dad had got me the book, wrote in the book about, you know, whether you want to get into coaching or not, that continues to be a dream of yours. May you, you know, strive to have the ideals of this man as you move forward in life. And, you know, signed it, and I still have that book and look back on it. So, yeah.
Now, that's powerful. But I love how your mother, you know, that's just that honesty, right? You know, they always say if they love you, they're going to be honest.
Yes,
but
100%.
At what point did she say, have you thought about being an O-lineman? Because that's what you became.
Well, I kind of gravitated to the offensive line just naturally, and I think I was a little bit bigger in, you know, one of the kids in my class. So looking back, honestly, you know, a lot of kids in my class, not a lot, all of them had, you know, jerseys, you know, would have Mike Rozier jerseys, or you know, the quarterbacks, Turner Gill, Craig Sundberg, you know, those were the Huskers that were coming through at that time when I was in that age. And for me, I always had offensive line. And if I didn't have a jersey, which when I was younger I didn't, I just made my own. I'd get an old Nebraska T-shirt and I'd write Dave Remington's number would be on there.
So you were gravitating towards
I was
line.
at a very young age. And then I never forget, I got my first Nebraska replica jersey because that was a big thing. You'd wear those to school. And my first jersey that I got was a Kevin Leitner number 57 jersey that I wore with pride. Probably wore it at least once a week to school, and so that was a jersey that I gravitated towards, and that was a player that I really liked. And those players that were coming through in the offensive line in the late '80s were pretty special. So Coach Sledge, who was now has a son playing at Nebraska, that was another guy I was obsessed with. When he played. There were so many great linemen coming through at that point in time in the offensive line. So I loved the offensive line even at a young age.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, they were celebrities back in the 80s, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But you talk about a lot of attention. Fullerton goes to state in 1990.
Yeah.
First time they'd ever been to state, right?
Yes, yeah.
I have to imagine that stadium on Friday nights was on fire with you and Brian Schuster and some other great players. What was it like in Fullerton on a Friday night in 1990s you're making that run?
Well, so Fullerton had not had a great deal of success. My brothers, when they played in high school, I idolized them. And Friday nights in Fullerton, couldn't wait for those nights. We just weren't very good. Unfortunately for our town, they hadn't experienced a lot of success since the late 70s. And so they'd went through the 80s, and it was pretty rough. Coach Pat Larson had came in and really instilled a discipline in our school. And that was one of the things I think he did really well, is just laying a foundation of expectations. And he had two assistant coaches. Greg Baker was our track coach and also our defensive coordinator. And Brad Wolf was our basketball coach and then helped out with special teams. So those three guys were our main coaches in all of our sports, and then helped out obviously with football. And all three of them, I think that was the main thing that they did for our school and they instilled discipline and they instilled expectations of performance. And we had a really good athletic team, not all big numbers. We were able to stay healthy. And we started out the year winning some close games against Shelton at home. We went to Madison and got a win at the end of the game. And then we got in David City, which David City at that point in time had a great deal of success. And I don't think Fullerton had beat them in maybe like 12 years or something. Got that win. Strasburg was another one. Dennis Coinson was a legendary coach at Strasburg at the time, a lot of wins, and ended up being a state championship coach. But those wins that we started to rack up, as we started to get those wins and people started to believe, it just got more and more special. And it kind of came to a big-time game in the first round of playoffs for me to really realize how big of a thing this is. We were playing Shelby, which was state ranked and had really successful teams at that point in time as well. And we had beat them barely in the regular season, hosted them back at Fullerton for the first round of playoffs. So not only did we make the playoffs and won our conference, but we hosted a playoff game, which would had never happened before. And it was 3 deep around the field. At that point in time, Fullerton just had a dirt track. People would pull their cars up there, and we were going out to a place to eat south of town called the Loop River Inn, and we were going there. Cars were already parked there at 4 o'clock trying to get their spots. People were saving seats in the bleachers, and then when you took the field, at an hour before the game, it was just surrounded with people. And so, it was an amazing time. It was so cool to be a part of that and experience that as a kid. I think I look back, that's some of my fondest memories as a football player, whether it was then or playing in college as well.
Yeah, and then you go to college, you go to Midland, play some line there as well. But you have another great memory. 1994, I believe it was the last team, right?
Yeah.
That went to the playoffs from Midland. What made that team so special? You got 2 really incredible special experiences, one in high school and then one in Midland. What made that 94 team so good?
Well, I think the biggest thing was competition. Our one-on-ones that we had, I played offense and played in the offensive line. The competition that we had against the defense, I'll tell you what, out on the field, we may have been on the same team, but out on the field when we took 1s-on-1s or 2s-on-2s, whatever it may be, those were all-out wars. You were fighting for pride in the locker room. And when you wanted bragging rights when you went back to the locker room after practice or you saw each other on campus. And, there was just a lot of competitive people on that team in '94 that did not want to lose. And you look now, fast forward, a lot of those guys that were either running backs or guys that played offensive line with me, I could go up and down the line, or guys on the defensive side of the ball. They have, went on and had really stellar careers as professionals, and some in education, some in the business world, some in banking, some in real estate. But I could go through a laundry list of people that were on that '94 team that not only were competitive when they played football in college, but now they're still competing at a high level in whatever profession they've chosen. So I think that was probably the biggest thing. And, that Doug Lonick was my offensive coordinator, and then I had a chance to coach with him as well. But, that was one of the things I thought he did a tremendous job, was just instilling that competitive edge in our offense. And Craig Schneider as a defensive coordinator, the same thing. And then Steve Schneider was our head coach.
I want to talk something else that happened in Midland, but before I do, because you bring this up, you talk about that competitiveness.
Yeah.
That made that team so special. Can you coach that? Can you coach competitiveness, or is it innate?
Well, I think you can cultivate it the best you possibly can. Some kids maybe have a little more desire for competition than others, but continue to put your players in competitive situations in practice. And not only practice, but in the weight room, and then encourage them to go out for other sports and stay competitive year round, I think is something that, I've taken on with us at Lakeview. And I think that's something that we try to make a part of our DNA, because I think the more competitiveness that you can put your kids in, and if they can develop that, and like I said, cultivate that competitive nature, I think that's going to pay dividends for your football team or whatever, sport that you're coaching.
Yeah. The biggest win at Midland is that you meet your wife, Kelly.
Yeah.
And did she have any idea what she was getting into, marrying a high school football coach at this time?
No, she didn't. And I was actually coaching at the time, and so this is my 5th year, and our very first date, and we go. Tin Cup was the movie.
I was going to ask the movie.
And we were in the midst of watching a really good movie, and I said, this movie's running a little bit longer than I thought. I hate to tell you this, but I got to get back to a meeting. So we were trying to watch the ending standing in the back of the movie theater, and we kind of had to cut that even short. And we hustled out of the movie theater, and I made the team meeting back at campus just in time, because we always brought the players in on Friday nights before the game, just to make sure that, hey, they were kind of getting back in the groove and making sure that they were going to get to bed on time, and feed them a snack, and coach would have a few things he'd talk about. And we had to cut the very first date short, and she did not get scared off at that point in time, stayed with me, and been together ever since.
That's when you outkicked your coverage,
exactly.
Right? When you have someone that understands that. And you guys you got 3 incredible daughters.
Yes.
And, you described them to me before we met today as smart and focused and competitive. But you also described them as tough.
Yeah.
Why tough?
Well, McKenna, Molly, and Haley have grown up in a coach's house their whole life. And, when they're younger, it's a little bit easier. But as they, grow into junior high and high school, they hear everything. And they hear the good and the bad, and obviously the ugly. And when it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, it gets really bad. And it could be, parents, it could be students. And I double as a dean of student. So, I'm dealing with discipline. So they're sitting in class, and maybe after I've, had to deal out some discipline, they, had that experience to sit in a classroom and a student coming back to class, but they've handled it as well as any, daughter could. And I think that toughness is a part of it, just being mentally tough enough to let things roll off their back a little bit. And as much as they want to stick up and defend their dad, they've always done a good job of just trying to separate it and try to be a student the best they can. And, I think that's always been something that they've done a great job with. And the ability now to take that forward into adulthood and be okay with, people saying certain things. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about me, but whatever situation, and just trying to focus on, what they can need to focus on, and basically control what they can control. And I think that's something that they've done a great job of. And they were all 3 really attack school and their education, and care a great deal about that. And I couldn't be more proud of the young ladies they become.
Yeah, they are doing great things. And, if people are really listening to this lesson after lesson, right? How you can cultivate competitiveness, how your daughters, right, have learned through life and can take that mental toughness into what they do today. But speaking of tough, here's your coaching. You get into Midland, you do some coaching there. Then you go to Hastings. You become an assistant coach. Good run during Hastings, by the way. And then you decide in 2001 it's time to be a head coach.
Yeah.
And you interview and get the job at Columbus Lakeview. Again, a school that had not had much success. In fact, Coach, I've got them down just 3 times making the playoffs prior to your arrival.
Yeah.
So walk me through that process of saying, why do you want the job? And, what are you thinking through and how do you ultimately make that decision? Because there's a lot of coaches that have to look at this themselves, right? Do I take that job? How did you walk yourself through it?
Well, backing up to when I did go to Hastings, I only had, at that point in time, the job market was really competitive. So I only had one interview, and that was at, honestly, Strasburg, and came in second to that one. And then really late, Hastings had an opening. And Coach Olson, Walt Olson, was head coach at Hastings at the time, was a Midland alum, called back to Midland. Doug Alonic had gave me my name, said, hey, you need to interview this guy, and if you have a chance, hire him. So I credit Doug Alonic a lot of ways of getting my first job and get my foot in the door there. So I went there, did well enough to get the job. Late May, early June, I got the word, and I was so excited. I went out, and if I have one suggestion, young coaches coming out of college, try to find a program that has a head coach in it that you can really learn from, and whether it's organization, whether it's leadership, whether it's building relationships. I had the opportunity to go and be an understudy for Coach Olson. He was only there for 1 year, and he took a job over at Council Bluffs Abraham Lincoln. But the things that we did in 1997, that fall, I was a sponge. Anywhere I could go, anywhere I could listen and learn from Coach, I did. And the things that I learned organization-wise, the things that I learned building relationships-wise, we still do in our program at Lakeview today that I learned back in 1997. He took off for Abraham Lincoln, and Coach Bob McAuliffe took over, and he came to me. I was 22, 23 at the time. He's like, I'm going to make you the defense coordinator. You're going to coach the offensive and defensive line. I'd already been coaching D-line, but I had a lot more responsibilities. And then that was a lot of learning that went on. So I did that for 3 years. We made another run to semis in 2000, and I just had that itch. Like, there were some certain things that I wanted to do and directions I wanted to go, and I knew you had to be a head coach to really, try to do that. So it was an interesting spring that year. I'd interviewed for a head job down in Maryville, Missouri, the Spoof Hounds. So I was one of the finalists for that job. I did not get that offer. And I did have a job offer from a high school in Missouri as well. There just weren't a lot of openings in Nebraska that year. And then I was going to move on, maybe go towards the Metro, and I actually had a job offer from Gene Sir in Papillion to be the offensive line coach.
Legendary coach.
Yeah, and so Lakeview came open really late, and I'd already talked to Gene. He'd already offered me the job. I said, Gene, I really want to go through this process at Lakeview. I don't know if I can get an interview, but can I at least interview, talk to the athletic director, and see if there's some interest there? He reluctantly said yes, and so anyway, I reached out to Doug Moss. He's give me a day or so, and I'll give you some feedback. He got back to me in 24 hours. I had some connections there. Coach Olson really went out on a limb for me. Tucker Keogh was a sporting goods guy in Hastings that did all his work with Lakeview, so he's really good friends with Doug Moss. Both those guys were instrumental in getting my foot in the door at Lakeview. So he called back and he said, hey, we would like you to come in for an interview. So I called Gene. He said, you have 1 week. Long story short, the process took about 2 weeks before they finalized it. I was jumping through some hoops with Papillion. I'd met with Dr. Black, who was the human resource guy at that time. Met with a principal because I have to teach elementary classroom there. I actually have an elementary ed degree as well. So I was going through the process, but in the same time, I was going through the process with Lakeview. Doug Moss called me on Monday morning and said, hey, we want to offer you the job. maybe, would you be interested in taking it? I immediately said yes, and I had to call Gene and say, I got this job offer. And Gene was pretty good about it. You know, he understood it.
That's
being
a
head
tough
coach.
call, though,
Yeah,
isn't
it
it?
was a tough call.
Especially to him.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you know, I think Gene understood. You know, there's a passion to be a head coach, and so I appreciate him being patient with me. And again, Coach Olson had a lot to do with that. It was on Coach Olson's recommendation that Gene even took a look at me, and so I did have the opportunity then to take the Lakeview job. And you know, you go in, you think you know a lot of things as an assistant, and you get to a school and you think you're gonna light the world on fire, and you get there and you realize, boy, you got a lot to learn yet. So
What did you, when you look back, what didn't you know?
well, I think the biggest thing is your ability as a head coach that you need to be a high-end communicator with all parties involved. And I think that's something you still can grow out throughout your career, but having the ability not just to communicate with your players, but being able to communicate with all invested parties. You know, there's stakeholders all throughout the community. And I don't care if it's, the parents, it's business people, the alumni, but your ability to make sure that all stakeholders understand that they're an important part of the program, important part of the process, I think was a big learning curve for me. I think I went into the Lakeview situation as a young coach thinking I just need to deal with my players. I need to deal with what's right in front of me, and that's not the case. You know, there's so many people and so many movable parts in a football program. Football is important in Nebraska. It's important in a lot of communities. But your ability to really communicate with all shareholders, all stakeholders, and make sure that they understand that you want them to be a part and feel a part of our football program, I think was something that I learned in the process, and I'm always trying to improve and do better on.
Yeah, I think just watching your program from afar, and Coach Thompson, I think you guys have here at Ashland Greenwood, you let the community in. There are barriers, right?
Yeah.
But you let them in, and suddenly they become vested, and that trust just explodes, right? In
Yes.
the community with you as well, because they feel like you are inviting them in and being a part of it.
And if they feel like they're a part of it, then obviously the energy around the program becomes greater. And if the players are feeling that investment from the community, from business people, from their parents, they're feeling that energy coming in, then they understand and the importance of that. And I think that obviously helps their focus and their ability to provide a lot of energy on Friday nights, because they don't want the program to let down the community. They want to make sure that that is a prideful thing for everybody that's involved.
Well, listen, you talk about momentum. Listen, you go into this program, hadn't had a lot of success at Lakeview, and in 24 years, you've won a state title. You've gone to playoff 12 times. You've won 4 district titles, which is saying something in Northeast Nebraska. Those districts are brutally tough with Pierce and Boone Central and Norfolk Catholic. But it took some time, as you mentioned, to turn the program around. And I want to know, was your moment 2004?
Yes.
When a program kind of looking for some footing, that win over SCOTUS, you have an 8-3 season, just 3 years removed from being the head coach. Was that the breakthrough? And if so, what was it that happened that season?
Well, I'll go back to the summer. Doug Moss was athletic director, and he had hired me, and a lot of appreciation for Doug going out on a limb and hiring a 26-year-old head coach with no head coaching experience. I was a coordinator, and he brought me in and gave me the opportunity. Well, that summer we were out sharing some time together and having a cold beverage, and we were having a good time, and the conversation kind of switched a little more serious. And he leaned across the table and he said, we need to see some things this year. We've had 3 years. This is year 4, and it's time to start seeing some results on the field. And he said, we've had 3 losing seasons, and you've been competitive, but we haven't won the games that would get us over the hump. We need to start seeing some results in that. And I kind of chuckled because I didn't know if he was, kind of joking at first, because he was kind of smiling when he would say it. And he, I'm serious. I hired you to do a job, and we need to, see some results this coming year. And that kind of jolted me a little bit. And, I remember it was in June, and so we had July and obviously most of August to get ready for that first game. And I think that jolted me enough to really, renew my focus a little bit. the head coaching title is one thing. And, if you're just doing it for the title at times, that's the wrong way to approach things. And I think that jolted me a little bit, like, you're the head coach, but you also need to make sure you're rolling up your sleeves and getting to work the very best you can. And I think I was working, but not maybe to the level I needed to ensure that we are putting our team in the best spot to win those close games that maybe we were dropping in the first 3 years. So that was probably an eye-opening situation and got me just a little bit more focused. And then we got into that season, and we were playing at Boone Central. And as usual, Boone Central is highly rated. And we were ahead late in the game, and I had 2 delayed game penalties, and it was on me, not getting to play in. And we punted the ball. Adam Yurkowski was our punter, had a coffin corner kick that hit the pylon, and it came out to the 20. We gave up a couple big plays, and they scored with, 20 seconds left to take the game away from us, and we lost. But I went in that Monday morning. I just happened to be walking by. I needed to talk to AD about something, so I went in Mr. Moss's office, and he just said, "I want to ask you about the game Friday night." I said, "You know what? That game's on me, and it's never going to happen again." And I took those 2 delay games, and it wasn't on the kids, and I told the kids that after the game. And, I'm going to make sure the rest of this season that I never put him in that situation again. And he kind of sat back in his chair, and he said, "I expected a lot longer conversation today, and we don't need to have one. I know where your head's at, and I appreciate the fact that you did not point to the kids as the reason we lost this game, and you took full responsibility." And he goes, "I have full confidence that you're going to get it done this year." And I think that from that point forward, him having confidence in me and the ability of me to stand up in front of the team and say, "You know what? That's on me. It's not going to happen the rest of the year. I didn't pin it on them." I think that was probably the turning point. I think the kids rallied around me. Obviously, our athletic director rallied around me, and that ability to feel that as a head coach, I think really carried us into the rest of the season. And we were able to get some big wins during the course of that year and get into the playoffs and have a couple huge playoff wins that year. We won at home against Loganview. We had to beat them twice that year. Tim Yonk, who's head coach at Creighton Prep, was head coach at Loganview at that time. Had a big win against them at home. And in the second game, we had to go to Crofton, and they were the state runner-up the year before. And we had to go to their place, and they were highly ranked, and we ran the same fake field goal that we ran against Pierce in the state championship game to put that game away late in the game and experience that big win. Unfortunately, came home against North Fork Catholic, eventual state champions, and lost, but very competitive that night and against one of the best high school football teams I've ever coached against. So, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, your humility, that helps you build trust without a doubt, to walk into a locker room afterwards and say, "Look, that's on me." And you talk about building trust, 2021. Coach, this is a state championship year, and after 3 weeks, you're sitting 1-2.
Yeah.
Now, granted, a couple of really close losses, right? But you're 1-2, so you go on to win a state. But before we get to the end, how are you keeping your team together at that point?
Well, what had happened, we'd had a really good win week 1 against Boys Town. We go up to Pierce. Pierce is the #1 ranked team in the state. We were a top 5 team, and we knew we had a pretty good team. And a funny story about that, we had watched film going into that Pierce game, and I went on the grease board on Sunday in our staff meeting. We meet all day Sunday. And I said to our defensive staff, I wrote on the board, I said, "Can we hold them to 28 points? And they kind of looked around. We'd already went through our game plan. I just said, "Can we hold them to 28 points?" Because they had a very high-powered offense.
They did.
Ben Bramer, Schulte at quarterback. They had a bunch of very good football team. They said, "Coach, we think we can hold them to 28. I said, "If you can hold them to 28, I said, I'm telling you right now, I said, we're going to score late in the game. We're going to be down 28-27. We're going for 2, and we're going to win and get out of there." And I said, "If you can get them to 28, I said, we're going to get 29. We're going to pull this upset." And they said, "We'll get it to 28. So we go up there. We score with 30 seconds left, 28-27. We go for 2. We had the play. We just put it in for that game. We had the play call. It went down. We just didn't quite get the execution we needed. and didn't complete the pass, but in the same respect, and we end up losing the game 28-27. But in hindsight, that loss combined with the next week when we felt like we left that field that night thinking we were the best team in the state of Nebraska, even though we didn't win. We had what was considered the best team at the time in C1 on the ropes, felt like we should have beat them. And I think we had a false sense of security. And that was probably from the head coach through the assistant coaches all the way down through the team. And so the next week, I don't know if our prep was what it needed to be against Wayne. And you say, well, you lost the game. How can that be? Listen, we've never been. That same class, I think we lost 56-0 to Pierce as sophomores. So when we had them on the ropes, had a chance to beat them late, that did provide a lot of, security that probably shouldn't have been there. So anyway, we go in against Wayne, probably didn't have the prep week that we should have. And Wayne was, always played hard, well-coached team. Well, they came in and beat us. And so we went that next week into the staff meeting. I'd spent the whole week analyzing the film, play-by-play, going back through. And the biggest thing that jumped off the screen at us was I didn't feel like we were holding our kids accountable. And, we were keeping kids out on the field that probably weren't playing with great effort that night. We kept kids on the field that weren't carrying out assignments. And I told our coaching staff, I don't care if it's a freshman. We got to figure out somebody to get them on the field and at least coach the kids up, give them another chance to go back out there. But if they're not going to give great effort, they're not going to get, be coachable, then, we got to find somebody else. And we put the film, we went through the film as a staff from the Wayne game, and every assistant to the man took full responsibility for that game, and not one of them threw our kids under the bus at any point in time. So we got up in front of our team on Monday, and as a staff, we took responsibility. We're not holding you accountable. We didn't hold you accountable on Friday night. We didn't hold you accountable during the course of the week to do better in practice and prep the way you should have. That carried over into the game, and we let you stay out on the field where you weren't giving great effort. We let you stay on the field when you weren't carrying out assignments like you were supposed to. And in turn, that got us, And so we're taking full responsibility as a coaching staff. We will promise the rest of the season you will get held accountable. You will do the assignments. You will give great effort. You will compete at a high level. And if you don't, you're not going to be out on the field. And I think our ability as a coaching staff to say, hey, we got to do our part to make sure that we're doing right by our team really paid dividends for us. And that was the theme for the rest of the year as our coaching staff. And our kids, rally around the theme of, we're going to do our very best. And we're going to compete at a high level. So what ended up being a really rough couple weeks, honestly, turned out to be the best thing that could have happened for our team as a whole, our coaches, our players. And we learned from those two games instead of, stewing on it and pouting and saying, oh, why us, and playing the victim. We looked at it and learned from it, and, I carried over for the rest of the season and what was, a special season and one for the ages.
I got to imagine there were some players that responded that knew their jobs might be up, that looked totally different after that week, didn't they?
Yeah, there was some kids that really stepped it up, and there was other kids that also rallied around the accountability piece. We had players playing at a high level against Wayne. It wasn't, everybody that was in that boat. We had kids that played at a very high level and give great effort, and they were disappointed. And I think their ability to hold their teammates accountable and kind of fall on that as well. I think they put some of that accountability piece on themselves, and that happened as early as Monday and Tuesday that week. Our seniors met, and I know a couple of our seniors had a very challenging conversation with the rest of the senior class. We don't want to put our parents through that situation. We don't want to put our community through that situation again. How about we make a pact right now that we're going to play at a level that is going to ensure that our parents and our community members don't have to sit through a game like that again. And their ability to hold each other accountable was, honestly, probably as big a thing as it was as the coaches holding them accountable as well. So just a great job on their part as well with a special group of kids for sure.
I love it. It's coming full circle now with the community coming in, out of players saying we don't want to disappoint them. Hey, I'll tell you what hasn't been disappointing is football in Northeast Nebraska. Yeah. Boone Central coach Mark Hudson says Northeast Nebraska is the SEC of Class C1 football. Pierce, they win titles in 1920, U in 21, Boone Central in 23, Norfolk Catholic has won titles. What makes Northeast Nebraska football so good? It's small towns. What makes it so good?
I've talked about this a little bit before, and some people may think it's a little corny, but I think it's in our DNA a little bit. I think when you go to that area of the state, I think people fought their tails off to get to that part of the state when they were settling Nebraska, and fought a long, hard life to ensure that their family had a good situation. And so when that got settled to when Nebraska was getting developed to what I think people have been fighting their whole lives up there. So I think it's in the DNA a little bit. It's not an easy life when they came out to that part of Nebraska way back when. And then I think that's gone down through the generations. And I think you see that a little bit, that blue collar mentality, that ability to, we're not going to give up no matter the circumstances. I think that's just part of the, traditions that are up there and part of the families that are up there. And I think that's just, if you move into that, I think that just becomes a part of you as well. So I think that honestly is a little bit of it. I think the competitiveness that is surrounded up there. I don't care if it's junior varsity games. I don't care if it's varsity games. I don't care if it's junior high games. You go to them. I think there's just a really, eagerness to be competitive in everything that you do.
Yeah. Hey, look, one of the things you have done, and you've said, having great assistant coaches is critical to your success in your program. And you have an outstanding crew. But what does a coach need to do? I think so often a head coach oftentimes doesn't think in high school that there's a process and you have to really take it seriously. And you've surrounded yourself with great people. What has your process been like? What would you say to a coach when they're developing their staff?
Well, for me, anytime we have an opening, I don't care if it's an elementary, classroom. I don't care if it's a para position. I don't care if it's a maintenance position, a high school position. If we have an opening in the school at all, and we have an opening on our coaching staff in 7 through 12, I start making connections and trying to find people to come in. And I want high-level coaches. I want people that are going to challenge me. I want people that are going to push me to be better. I want a good balance between, veteran coaches and younger coaches are going to bring some youthful energy. But the thing is, I think as a head coach, you can't feel threatened by bringing in quality assistants. You've got to seek out the most qualified people you can. And so you make a lot of contacts, and my admin team will joke a little bit with me, and my wife will. My kids will give me a hard time. If we have an opening, I'll literally get on school websites for whatever and start looking for assistant coaches or even head coaches at smaller schools that might be looking to move, for people that have connections back to the Columbus area. I'll start there, and then I'll try to just see if there's some people that might be interested in being part of our football program. Part of the process is I always reach out to the area colleges, Midland, Concordia, whatever connections I have. Lou Varley down at Peru State, always reach out to him. Hey, are there any graduates that you just had or recent graduates that are in another school that might be interested in making a move? Aaron Rudloff, one of our co-defensive coordinators and defensive line coach, he was only a year out. Made a connection through him, through the coaches at Concordia, talked him into coming. That's just one of the side stories. But I try to get the very best human beings I can on our football staff. And I try to get people that care about kids and care about football as a whole. And that's just really paid dividends for our school and for our staff. And we got a native from, not a native, but a teacher from Ashland, Jeff Bargan.
That's right.
Yeah, so we got Coach Bargan back in 2007. Immediate impact for our coaching staff. And then, he's continued to grow with our program. He served as special teams coordinator, and then he's been my defense coordinator or core coordinator and our head wrestling coach at Lakeview for a long time now. And any bit of success that we've had at Lakeview, you can, put him right there as, 1A and 1B, whatever you want to call it. But he's a tremendous influence and mentor for our kids at Lakeview, not only through coaching but teaching as well. And I'm walking down the halls and I'll say, hey, what's your favorite class? And most likely Coach Bargan and science will come up. They really enjoy him as a teacher. And so his ability to not only teach in a classroom but teach on the athletic field has been great for our community and our kids in our community.
Yeah, I got to tell you, we were heartsick. I mean, when he left, we knew you were getting a great one. And of course, when I say we, I have kids that went to Ashland Greenwood. So you got a great one there, without a doubt. And it's funny, and your staff is just great from top to bottom. But it's, I look at Ashland Greenwood, and I see Tonjes and Thompson and Tonjes. But having almost that sidekick, right?
Yeah.
That person's kind of attached at the side. I imagine you guys have some conversations that go well beyond after 10 o'clock at night from time to time, right?
Yeah, a lot of times for us, we just the other day we were talking to a couple of Nebraska coaches, and they were just asking about our staff a little bit. And honestly, we refer to each other as brothers. I mean, honestly, that's where we're at. We're in that brother relationship. We can have hard conversations with each other, hold each other accountable. Coach is the first one to check me if I need to be checked, and same back with him. But the biggest thing is there's such a trust there. So when either of us are having that conversation, we know it's coming from a place that we want each other to get back in a great headspace. And I don't know where I would be as a head coach if I didn't have that person in my life, in my coaching life, I should say. I obviously have my wife and my family, but to be able to have that person right next to me professionally is something that's great. And I think I'm such a task-oriented person. I've got to check off lists that sometimes, I get lost in the details of things, where two people in my life that have been so great about getting me back to neutral is Coach Bargan. He is such a relationship builder with kids, and him providing that opportunity for me to really learn from that. But also my wife as a third grade teacher, always has done a great job building relationships. I don't know if anybody does it better with her, but both of those have been strong influences in my life to, hey, slow down, put your checklist away. It's not always about the details. It's about making sure you talk and communicate with kids at a high level, and make sure that you're spending some time to know them and be comfortable being in those situations. So I've been very fortunate to have those type of people in my life that, again, get me back. And as a head coach, you want those people to balance you out, right? And definitely my wife and Coach Bargan have been those two people for me, and having that ability to make sure that you have relationships over efficiency, which, by the way, is our Bible study term that we have during the week. So shout out to Deb Berman, my wife and I's Bible study leader. But that's been something I try to work on daily, and it's not easy for me, to be honest with you. I'm such a task-oriented checklist person. That's something I always got to work on.
Yeah, I love how you pull in learning lessons from not just athletics, but so many others can influence you, which is great. I want to talk about Friday nights, and this year Nebraska is hosting a game against Illinois, and everyone in this state loves Nebraska football. And again, I don't think Nebraska asked for this game at home. I think they had to, but give me your honest take. You and Bargan are sitting around on a Friday night, no microphones. You're talking about what this really means. How did it hit you when you get this news?
Honestly, I've got to the point, I think this honestly comes from Coach Bargan as much as anything. He's instilled this in my professional career more than any coach or person. Coach is so competition-oriented that it's got to me. And it's taken my life over in a really positive way. For so long, again, I worried about so many things I couldn't control as a coach. He's been so great about, let's just roll the ball out and play. Mm-hmm. And they want to tell us we're going to play on Thursday, let's play on Thursday. If we're going to play on Friday up against Nebraska, let's play on Friday. But we're not going to have any excuses. We're not going to care about things we can't control. We're going to only worry about the things we can control, and we're going to take the field, and we're going to do the very best we can. I think you set yourself up for a very weak performance if you really, start worrying about those outside forces. And again, I attribute Coach Bargan really balancing me out with that, and my ability to really take his cue on that. And not to say he doesn't have to check me from time to time, because he does. As a head coach, you start to naturally worry about. We try to model that for our kids as much as we possibly can. Listen, let's just go compete. Whatever the circumstances, wherever the game's at, let's go compete.
What has football given you?
Well, it's given me a great deal. It's given me the opportunity to never work a day in my life. And by that, I mean, it's not that I don't put in long hours, and it's not that I don't put in a great deal of time, but it's all labor of love. So the ability to just go to work every single day and feel like I'm not working has been a great gift. And that would be a big suggestion to any young person: find your passion and then go make that your job, make that who you are moving forward in adulthood. And I've had that ability. It's nothing for me to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go work out for a little bit, think about the day. We actually have morning practices on Wednesday, starting anywhere from 5:30 to 6 during the course of the season. It's nothing for me to get up at 4:30 and get ahead of the day that early. I pop out of bed every single day on those days, and I'm ready to attack the day. And so just that ability to do that, along with so many life lessons, I think that's the biggest thing. And and this goes back and kind of comes full circle when you talk about it. That's one of the things I think our parents instilled in us, my dad, Marlon, and my mom, Judy, at a young age. You shouldn't be the focus. It should be about everybody else and being a servant to others. And whether it was their ability to serve through church or in the community. My dad was a longtime school board member. When he passed away, my mom took over the school board position. Their ability to serve the community in several different ways and make it bigger than themselves. I think that definitely trickled down to us as boys, and I think that's carried over into my professional life as well. But then football just drives that home as well. If you're going to be a part of a team of any sort, a football team, a basketball team, wrestling team, whatever it is, it's got to be bigger than you, and you can't get wrapped up. And I don't care what type of good season we have, whether it's our state championship team in 2021 or our team in 2017 that only had 33 kids on it, 9-12 that made the playoffs, or our team in 2015 that went 4-5, or another team that overachieved that maybe didn't have a winning record. All those teams have one thing in common: the kids were all about the team, and they didn't care about who got the credit. It was all about ultimately them being able to perform at a high level on Friday nights, and they didn't care who got the credit. Mm-hmm. And so I think that ability to really drive home that life lesson that our parents instilled in us at a very young age is definitely a gift that's continues to keep giving as well.
That's what football has given you. But I want you to think back, and you don't have to say a name, but I'm curious about a player that you believe your football program may have helped steer them in the right direction. Maybe they might have gone down a different path, or maybe they weren't. Maybe just football gave them something that helped them along the way. I'm curious if I'm sure you got a million stories, but does one stand out?
Yeah, we've had several players come through our football program, and ultimately we have high expectations for our players, and ultimately we want a structure for them, and ultimately we want them to have their life lived a certain way when they're part of our team, right? And so we've had some players come through that obviously in the term they needed football more than football needed them, so those type of players. But we've had also players that come through that absolutely love football, and then because of the love they poured into our football program, I think the football program was able to give them some things back, and then steer them on a path towards doing some things really successful. But we have some kids that have had some tough situations and came out of those the other side and got into adulthood and have been very successful. And the ability to receive a text from a player that you had in the 2000s or the teens, as I call it, 10, 15 years later after the fact that you've had them a part of their football program, and now they're living out of state, and they talk about some of the things that went on in your football program that has helped them become a higher person in human resources or whatever company they are. And I just had a text from Roberto Castillo, who had a good home life and everything, but he just had texted me this past spring. He was leaving Nashville and heading down to Texas to take over a new department down there, and just wanted to say I appreciated being part of your football program. Mm-hmm. He actually played for us and then was in our community for a while, and then coached as an off-staff coach with our junior high. And get that text from Roberto and just say that our football program may have played a very small part in him and some of the things that he does in his professional life now. Those are type of things that are pretty special come back to you. So we appreciate those stories. And it's not only myself, Coach Frenzen, but obviously Coach Barg and the other coaches that we have. That's the one thing about our staff that I feel like I probably won't make that personal connection with every single player, but I have Jeff Bargans, I have Coach Clarks, I have Coach Redloff, Coach Biggs, and Coach Shadley, who played for me now, is back coaching. on down through the line of all of our coaches that we have, that at least somebody on our staff makes a personal connection. Matt Cross is another coach that we have that's off staff now, and he's a great relationship builder with the kids that we have. Zach Layshock also played for me. But we have these guys. Caden Ransom's a young coach. We have some youth in there with Ethan Piper that just got on staff with us as well. So we have these guys that have come back and been a part of our program now, and somebody on our staff's able to make hopefully a personal connection, so every one of our players on our team has that connection. They can feel like they can take something forward with them.
I love it. That makes it worth it right there. Well, now we're going to do something called 3 and Out, Coach.
Okay.
All right, these are going to be kind of random, kind of out there questions. The good thing is we won't get the 4th down, so we can't run the fake field goal.
Gotcha.
So here we go. 1st and 10. Since Northeast Nebraska has been called the SEC of the C1, let's go with something with the SEC. If you could invite one SEC coach to come to your program, spend a day, go through the X's and O's, talk about the middle part of the game, what SEC coach would it be?
Well, he just retired, but Nick Saban would be top of the list. I anything that's put out there from Nick Saban, I'm always listening. He's retired, and we do some of our leadership like a lot of football programs. I know Ashland Greenwood does. So some of the clips that we show our kids, there's a lot of Nick Saban clips in there. So I'm a fan. A guy I'd be interested in talking to, probably not ultimately popular choice with a lot of coaches, but I think he has a lot of great things. The way he carries Lane Kiffin, I'd be really interested in just to sit down, and he would be a great conversation, I think.
Coach Rosenberg said that'd be a guy he'd want to talk to. The guy I would have loved to have talked to would have been Mike Leach. He's not with us anymore, but when Mississippi State, and it just seemed like anything he touched offensively worked. But all right, since you were an O-lineman, let's get in the trenches now. So as a former O-lineman, let's say you are now an NFL lineman. So you made it. Who would scare you more in the trenches? Reggie White on the other side of the line, or Kevin Green, the great Pittsburgh Steeler? Which D lineman would scare you more?
Well, I think Reggie White would probably scare me a little bit more. He was a guy that never stopped. His motor never stopped. And he was a guy that would probably, as an offensive lineman, you'd have a hard time getting mad at, because, I heard the stories about how he would destroy an offensive lineman, help him up, and say, God bless you. So his ability to maybe keep you kind of soft a little bit mentally, because not only was he punishing you, but he was blessing you at the same time. That would have made it a little bit tough, where Kevin Green was maybe a little more of a smack talker, maybe a guy that was in your face, and I think you could probably get your motor running a little bit easier, towards wanting to get after him. So I think the mind games that Reggie White would be able to play with you, along with the physical game, would be tough to go against on a every play situation.
I saw a video of Reggie White the other day, and I forgot, you just forget how great he was. But he took a guy, and an O-lineman, and just threw him.
Yeah.
I mean, threw him. It was an O-lineman. It wasn't a running back. He was something special. All right, so Hollywood comes calling, and they're going to make a movie about you. Who are you casting as yourself?
Who am I casting as myself? Well, I didn't expect this question, so running down through, I don't know. We got to kind of come up with the actor, but it would have to be probably somebody that has got a rough voice, a little grizzled at times. I think a guy that's probably got a blue-collar edge to him. Off the top of my head, I can't think of that person. Can't be overly good-looking, I don't think. So he's got to have that weathered look, so to speak, from, I don't know, the coaches that I've seen play different parts through the years. I don't know. There's a lot of good actors out there. I leave that for somebody else.
You don't watch many movies, I can tell. Here, we'll make it easier. How about Bargain? Who would you cast as Bargain? I got a guy, if you can't think of one.
Who's your guy?
I'd go Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito. He would appreciate that, Tim. I'll tell you what, I love that. I think that's great casting. I think you couldn't find a better, actor that could play that part. I think he would do that role great. Yeah, that would be awesome.
I sat with him at the Shrine Bowl. Not Danny DeVito, Bargain. Coach Bargain, and no, he's such a joy. I'm gonna hear about this, aren't I?
That's okay, and he's gonna hear about it from me. I'm gonna call him Coach DeVito from now on, moving forward. So yes.
Well, listen, this has been a ton of fun. You have done such great things at Lakeview, and listen, the future is so bright. What you surround yourself with, and the lessons too that I think coaches are going to take from this episode, tremendous. So Thank you so much
Yeah.
for driving down this morning and doing this.
Well, I appreciate it, Tim. It's always awesome to spend a little bit of time just talking about football in general and culture and leadership. And you guys are doing such a great deal here at Sideline Power. This podcast has been great. I catch all of them, and you've had some great coaches on here. And just to be a little bit of part of that is humbling, to say the least. So appreciate you including me in this awesome podcast that you have.
You bet, Coach. Good luck this year.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.